Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. This is Nikita from the Diaspora, and I want to talk about something that has been coming up a lot in a lot of Facebook groups around social work, therapy, and private practice. So, disclaimer before we start, I want to be very clear that this is not me dragging anyone. Your choices, this is not me dragging private practice. I am a therapist and I love the therapeutic process. I've just been more awakened to my idea about wealth in private practice. And so this video is specifically about the misconceptions that a lot of people have been sold that if you want to make real money as a social worker or therapist, you need to go into private practice. And I want to say private practice is not a wealth strategy. It is not what helps you build wealth. And I know some people might get a little triggered by that. So let's talk about why I say this. So first of all, let me just say that this was sparked from me seeing a lot of posts like this, but this particular post made me say, I need to make the video and kind of share my thoughts on it. And so the post was something along the lines in a Facebook group, but something along the lines of, I'm noticing a lot of social workers are apprehensive about getting into private practice now. They don't want to do the private practice work. Like, how do y'all feel? Why? What are your biggest apprehensions? And the comment sections were eye-opening, to say the least. So some people are saying, oh, it's scary. The income is inconsistent. There's inconsistent pay with insurance rising, taxes. I have no benefits, no legal team backing me. And others were like, this is the best career move I've ever made. The best decision I've ever made. I've been doing this for 10 years, 20 years. And so I kind of sat with that because my question to the best decision ever, folks, is like, okay, but what does your actual life look like? Now, again, disclaimer, I know personally people who have built successful private practice, but we have to remember that just because someone has done it, it doesn't mean it's the norm. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen for everyone. So for those people, my question is like, are you seeing 20 clients a week, like every week, 10 years straight? Like, is that your only source of income? How are you building wealth? Like, what is your wealth strategy? And I think I asked that question and some people, nobody really answered. But anyway, you can answer in the comment here. But I got really curious and I did a little bit of digging on my own. So there was a particular, like folks, but I chose this one particular person that I saw that were like, they were doing it for almost a decade and they love it. And I did a little digging. I'm not going to say their names or nothing like that, but I wanted to like kind of look at their digital footprint. Because for me, my philosophy as a social worker, business, entrepreneur, like you have to have a solid digital footprint. I'm still growing, so I'm not Oprah or nothing, but we have to work on our digital footprint. And so I really got curious and I clicked on somebody and I went on their private practice page and I noticed, number one, that again, I'm not dragging nobody. I just want to bring the attention so we can learn from it. I already noticed that this person was in a state that earned the lowest cost of living, in the US. That's number one. I did notice that they had a beautiful website, and on this website, it seemed like a practice that was like maybe a group practice, but there were only 2 clinicians on there listed. And the other clinician, interestingly, I think that was the clinician that had commented, the other clinician, they had their own separate practice. So to me, one of the questions is, okay, number one, you have to know what is your goal for opening a private practice? Because if you're ultimately working 20, 30 years with someone else's private practice and then yours, I can guarantee that you probably don't have a lot of room to be free. Okay. And it's not shade. I know I'm a little flary when I talk, but it's not shade. You probably don't have a lot of room to do as much, like freedom, with the inflation happening, it has to add up, okay? And I did notice that their specialty was very much in demand, so that was a plus. And I noticed that they had some IP. I'm not gonna say what it was, but it was passive IP. When I say IP, I mean intellectual property, which is great. And so that means if I go in on their website and buy their IP, I'm not going to say what it is. Literally, if they're sleeping right now and I go in and I buy it, they will make money while they sleep. So I think when we talk about, oh, passive income, we want to make money while we sleep, that's kind of what they mean by that. Like, if you have something already made that can be sold over and over again, which they have, then that's more so passive, but there's no true passive income, as people say. So again, they're listed on so they're working two practices essentially. And I know a lot of people would say, well, okay, I love the freedom. I don't want anyone over my head. I love the freedom. But like, we have to look at the cost of your time, okay? And is this really sustainable for 20, 30 years? Okay, so I think the misconception people make is that, oh, just open up a private practice and you'll be great, you'll be your own boss. And I don't think a lot of people realize what it means to be your own boss. I know plenty of people who have opened up a group practice and are successful. They're doing a thing, but I know it's a lot of work. But I also know a lot of people who have closed down their group practices because it's just too much work. And so here's what I'm saying. This may not resonate to everyone because you might be a real admin-y type of person and you like that stuff. So if that's you, knock yourself out. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong. When I'm saying this, I'm not saying that it's wrong to have a private practice. But I want for the people like me and the people who are like creative brained, who don't like heavy admin stuff, to be honest about options and way to build wealth. And so point number one I want to make is that private practice is a time for money model, not really a scalable one. Private practice in itself. So that means if you're sick, there's no income. If your child has an emergency, you lose income. So it's really, really hard to scale when it's time for money, right? And so people might be like, well, that's easy, have a group practice. That also comes with its own challenges. Like, you have to be more professional. First of all, if you have a solo practitioner, you can kind of, hustle. But if you're going to open up a group practice, you have to be very, very aware that you are dealing with other people. You're dealing with other people's money, their time, everything. There's so many policies like that comes into play when you're dealing with this. And so you have to be able to consider that when you are when you're thinking about that. So one of my favorite internet uncles, his name is Myron Golden. Comment below if you love Myron Golden. He talks about the idea that wealth is more so about time than it is money. Okay, so I saw someone post about how they were earning about $130K in private practice, but they were still time poor, essentially. They were exhausted, overextended, they felt lonely. That is not wealth to me. Maybe to you, maybe you I don't know. But to me, that is not wealth, because what good is it if I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm lonely? That's when we begin to burn out and develop mental health issues. So that's something to consider. That private practice depends on your time. And if your time is not there, you can lose money. Number two, you tend to hit a ceiling fast before you can even build wealth. What does that mean? That means even if you charge $200 a session, you are still limited to the amount of clients that you're emotionally able to hold. Okay? And you might do the math and be like, ooh, 200 a session times 30 clients or 20 clients. But can you hold the emotional load of 20 to 25, 15 clients week after week after week after week? You have to be honest with yourself about that. I know I can't do that over a 30-year span. I can't do that. You have to understand that there's no shows and cancellation and admin work that's going to happen. There's marketing. And what I've learned in this industry is that therapists and social workers are some of the worst marketers. And it's no shade, because I'm a therapist and social worker, but I've grown to be passionate about business, marketing, branding, and things of that nature. And so you have to realize that if you have a specialized niche, then you have to learn to market. I literally see great marketers who are social workers and therapists, but the majority of us are just not there. And so I hear so many students, like I've talked to so many students who are like, oh, I'm gonna get into private practice, but you gotta know these things first. You gotta understand what the real logistics are. You gotta think about your notes, billing, all of that good stuff. And you have your own nervous system to care for. You have to care for that. And so most therapists typically max out about 15 to 20 clients a week before they start to feel it in their nervous system. And you might look at, after taxes, 70 to 150K, okay? And this is business. So business ebbs and flows. There's ebbs and flows in business. So you have to also prepare for that. You have to leave room for that. And it all depends on your location. So 150K a year after taxes is pretty decent. That's really good, actually. A lot of people would be very comfortable on that. But that looks really, really good in a place like Mississippi. Like if you make 150K after taxes in Mississippi, you're doing pretty good. But if you're making that in California, different story, right? So you have to also consider location. Consider that. Another thing people might say, well, I'll just, have, a license in different states so I can see different people. And that can help for sure, but you still are going to hit that ceiling because you're one person and it's just limited, So the next point I want to make is insurance reimbursement often is designed to keep you comfortable and not in wealth. It's not a wealth cycle. It's there to keep you comfortable. Remember, insurance companies are there to build their own wealth. So you have to consider that. So that means they control the rates, where you get paneled, documentation, how fast you get paid. Like I've heard horror stories of clinicians who didn't get paid. And so you have to be, if you're really in this, you have to be ready ready for that. And so the system is not really designed to make therapists wealthy. Therapists, are kind of designed just for therapists to be workers. You work for me, we recruit you, you do your thing and make us money. Therapists are generally designed to make money for someone else. So if you're a therapist and you want to make money for yourself, you gotta be strategic. And private practice is just a part of the puzzle, okay? And so if you are, especially if you're a Black immigrant person of color, you have to remember what that is. And I'll talk about that a little bit down the line. Next point is, when it comes to private practice, it requires clinical labor for a long, long time. Like private practice in itself, again, is not scalable. It's not usually a sellable asset. Now people might be like, oh, well, I sold my private practice. Look at the percentage of private practices that can actually be sellable. I personally have not run the numbers, but I guarantee you that it's not over 10%. There's no way. That is sellable, meaning that it's profitable enough for you to sell this to someone else. Okay, so we want to look at like the reality that most private practice owners, when we talk about most, we're not talking about the anomaly people who are just beasts in the field, because there are some beasts in the field that really, really inspire a lot of us, but you got to see what it takes and you got to be real. And so hopefully this video can help create some beasts in the field, right? But when I say sellable, like it's an asset, meaning it's profitable, okay? So my personal opinion about that is that anyone can pick this up as it is. They can buy it as it is, and it's profitable. And that's profitable outside of paying your clinicians, admin stuff. Like it's making money outside of paying your employees and admin expenses and all that stuff. Like, is it profitable? And I guarantee you most private practice are just not a profitable business, meaning to sell as a business. Maybe it's profitable for you to pay yourself, sure, but it's not profitable to just sell. And so that's something I honestly wish I knew about when I was a new therapist, I wish I knew about selling businesses. I never thought get into private practice, make it equitable, and make it an asset and sell it. I never thought of that. And that's another thing. Maybe some therapists need to consider building their business to a profitable business so that they can sell it. And some therapists may need to, instead of trying to build it from the ground up, consider buying a profitable business. Because now when you buy that business, you're buying it with the profit, the employees, whatever, locked in. Like we gotta get into that game. I don't know why we don't talk about it enough. Like I sit in those groups and people don't talk about it enough. I'm sure people are doing it. So next point here is hustle does not equal wealth, guys. Especially for Black, immigrant, first gen clinicians, people of color. Hustle is just not the best wealth strategy. Strategy is, not hustle. And the reason why I say this is in our communities, like in the communities that I've named, we are just built to hustle. But a lot of times we just hustle ourselves in the ground. We don't really hustle to new heights. We may hustle to 200K and we think that's it. But when it comes to strategy, we need to know how to manage money. We need to know how to invest money, where to invest money. So we can't just look at, I'm going to earn money, because that's not wealth, that's income. Wealth is a next step. Like, okay, what do you do with this income? Okay. If you're just paying your bills, you're not building wealth. You're just not. You're just not building wealth. Okay. And I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this. Like, if you are just earning enough to pay your bills, you're not building wealth. And we gotta change that. Especially people of color, especially first gen clinicians. We've got to start building wealth. Like, for real. Like, why should we be left out of the wealth building pool? No, absolutely not. So again, when it comes to our community, the communities I named, right? I see us in the cycle of full private practice, like, for example, I see so many people who are thriving, who look really good online, and they have these private practices, but they have a full private practice. They're supervising LMSWs, they're running a group practice, they're doing speaking engagements, they're selling courses, they're selling a book, they're doing corporate trainings, they're planning retreats. That is too much if you want to build wealth, if you want to hustle. But we've got to start being strategic about how we get our money, because doing all of that all at once, like, I literally watch people every day, and I've had to step back and just watch and be like, this doesn't make any sense. You cannot think that you're going to build wealth by having a full-time private practice, supervising interns, building a course, selling a course, because it's so much work to market that, like, having a private practice and getting interns and a group practice and speaking, these are different avenues that you have to market for. You can't just put in one effort and everything will explode. You have to market, you have to sell your book. How are you selling your books? You know, if you're locked into 30 sessions a week and then you have kids and then you have a spouse, like, how are you selling your book? Now, if you're a single person, you got no kids, like, if you want to, but still be strategic about it. Okay. So I just really hate to see people of color fall into that hustle cycle that never gets us wealth. So next point 6 is wealth requires leverages. Wealth requires us to leverage and have smart diversification, not multiple hustles. Like, here's what I've seen. Like, it takes into the point last time. Here's what I've seen. I've seen so many people, right? They own a barbershop, and then they own a lawn business, and then they own a club, and then they sell this, and then they sell that. Like, that could work, because if you look at people like 50 Cent and Shaquille O'Neal and people like that, they own multiple businesses, but they don't do it the way that we typically start, where we're just like, all of a sudden we have all these million things. They build, they leverage the money, and they invest in different things. So you have to get strategies. And on this channel, I do want to talk more about how we can start to begin to leverage those strategies to be able to build wealth. Because why shouldn't we build wealth? Why? What is the reason? What is the reason that therapists and social workers feel that we should not be in the wealth pot? What is the reason? I don't see it. So again, we need to leverage and have smart diversification, not just a bunch of hustles. Okay. So you have to, go back to what Myron Golden said, like wealth is more about time than money. So you have to figure out, how can I earn more without increasing my emotional and physical output, because you're going to burn out. You're not a robot, right? So for therapists, this might look like, okay, keeping a smaller load in private practice, and then having a B2B, which is business to business consulting, where you're training organization, because they have budgets, okay? So when you think of an individual client, them paying you $500 an hour is tight. Now, people might be like, well, what if I have celebrity clients? Great. Most people are just not going to have celebrity clients. Most people are not going to target rich people. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are targeting people who don't have a lot of money. And so when you go to organization and you train for them, they have a $500 budget, $1,000 budget. They can afford that. And so you want to diversify what you do a little bit more. Plus intellectual property. This can be a course, a curriculum. Let's say you work with kids. It would be so awesome to build a curriculum about social emotional learning where you are selling this to districts. You're training them, you're selling that, and you're helping maybe their parents in your private practice. That's how you diversify. You're not doing a million gazillion things. You're diversifying your output so that it's a little bit more balanced. Or you can do brand partnerships. Maybe there is Pearson, I don't know, like, or Amplify, like they do, and then you do brand partnerships with them, right? You do content for them. Now you have a really cool diverse output, and it doesn't feel like heavy hustle. And so again, you have to ask yourself, what is your wealth vehicle outside of one-on-one sessions? You have to ask yourself that. So for me, I have not completely given up therapy because I love the process, but I have definitely shifted my view of private practice being my wealth strategy. It's just not the wealth strategy. For me, wealth comes from investing into assets that produce income, and we can talk about that more. And that's something that I'm exploring on this channel. And so again, if this resonates with you, if something shocks you or something you disagree with, comment below. And if you've watched, please subscribe and like, and I'll see you on the next video.